Joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to say my friend Andrew McCarthy, contributing editor at National Review, senior fellow at the National Review Institute, former federal prosecutor, and author of Faithless Execution. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Andy, so much to talk to you about. Let me start with the revelation today, and you've written about this, but the Wikileaks emails confirm that back in March of 2015, after the subpoena went out from the Congress for all of Hillary's emails, work-related emails, John Podesta sent an email to Cheryl Mills, the attorney for Clinton, saying, think we should hold emails to and from Obama. Now, remember, Obama had previously told, or was about to tell after that, or around that time, CBS or ABC, that he didn't know anything about Hillary's private server, which of course was not true. So, and then they talk about, eventually executive privilege kind of was claimed on these emails, correct?
Well, they didn't want to call it executive privilege, Steve, because that sounds too much like Nixon. And they didn't want to. The other thing they could have done that they didn't do was they didn't designate these 22 emails between Obama and Mrs. Clinton as classified, because that would have been essentially an admission that he was violating his own executive order and federal law by exchanging information that was classified over a non-secure line. So he didn't want to do that either. So what they came up with is this sort of cockamamie, kind of like executive privilege explanation, rationale that, the president has to have confidential communications with his top advisors in order to get free and frank, good national security advice. But what it really was they were tucking this under the rug. And I think at the time, as I said then and maintain since, it was clear from that point on that, if not before, that Mrs. Clinton was never going to be prosecuted, because you couldn't do it
without Obama involved.
Without explaining that the president had done the same thing. Yeah,
and these emails were eventually handed over to the State Department, and the State Department refused to release the emails. So that's
at the president's direction.
Right, which you wouldn't call executive privilege. All right, let's go back to the debate. And I know you've written about this, and I know you're going to write about this again tomorrow. I look forward to that piece coming out. We'll all check for it at National Review. But let's listen to what stirred so much of the controversy, along with one other quip. Watch.
There has never been anything like this, where emails, and you get a subpoena, and after getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails. And then you acid wash them, or bleach them, as you would say, a very expensive process. So we're going to get a special prosecutor, and we're going to look into it, because you know what? People have been, their lives have been destroyed for doing 1/5 of what you've done. And it's a disgrace. And honestly, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
All right. So, and she came back, said it's untrue, and then she said, aren't we glad someone like Donald Trump isn't in charge of the laws in this country? And he said, because you'd be in jail. So the left immediately went nuts, saying, oh, it's like a kangaroo dictatorship. He's going to lock up his opponent if he gets to be president. He's going to put her in jail. He never said that, and you're no Trump fan, but you acknowledge that, right?
Well, I don't think, Steve, that he should be saying, I will put you in jail, or you would be in jail if I were president. But, in saying that I'm going to have a special prosecutor look at this, he's actually acting much more appropriately than Obama did. And that implies yet another point, which is, we're not talking about going after someone for being an enemy of the regime like they do in a banana republic or a dictatorship. We're talking about crimes that were committed, that were abuses of power when she was in office, that have utterly nothing to do with opposing Donald Trump, and that were so serious that even the Obama administration at least made like they were going through the motions of investigating it. So it can't be that, if you're a member of the opposition party, you have impunity to violate the law, because if you're ever prosecuted by the party in power, everyone's going to say, we've become a banana republic. That's idiotic. What we have to focus here on is the difference between real crimes and crimes that in these dictatorships are trumped up against people's political opponents. That's obviously something we should never tolerate, but that's hardly what we're talking about here.
Right, absolutely. And another column coming out tomorrow in response to something Charles Krauthammer said on the issue, so we'll all look for that. One more for you, Andy, maybe two. From the leaked emails, we also see that Hillary has accused Saudi Arabia and Qatar as supporting terror groups. That, and you wrote about that, and you also wrote about bizarre story of one of Biden's top aides basically sabotaging and undermining his any presidential bid that he might have wanted to run.
Yeah, these WikiLeaks revelations, even though I think we have to be very skeptical, at least in the first instance, about them because of the source of them, but as long as they're not being denied and their authenticity isn't being called into question, I think they're raising some really major and interesting issues with respect to the Obama administration. With Mrs. Clinton, clearly she's putting things in memoranda to the White House that really fly in the face of things that she says publicly, which is a theme that we see with her again and again. The Ron Klain thing, Klain is a major Democratic and Clinton insider who was Al Gore's chief of staff and was Biden's chief of staff for the first 2 years in the Obama administration. He seems to say in this email with Podesta that he had something to do with the decision that was made, apparently reluctantly on Vice President Biden's part, not to seek the Democratic nomination in 2016. We don't find out what it is, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. All right, Andy, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, up next, the panel with Wayne Allen Root and Peter Morisi. Do not go away.